has come to Pizza Hut. Marvel Comics X-Men. For $2.99, you can get a personal pan pizza X-Men cup and one of 4 all-new exclusive edition X-Men comic books. You won't get this X-Men experience anywhere else. No doubt about it.
X-Men! Hey, how about those effects, huh? You've seen it before, but never the same. I've got sound effects. Pizza Hut teams with Marvel Comics in 1993 to bring the youth of America personal pizzas in the guise of superheroes. But you already knew that. This actually wasn't the only time they did a crossover promotion. There were also video cassettes that had episodes of the cartoons with bonus interviews with some comic creators and Stan Lee. Each of them came with a mini comic, mini poster, and trading card as well. Man, I wish I still had those. I had all these comics as our family always seemed to be particularly susceptible to a comic, movie, or toy gimmick. Never read them, but if you've seen any of my videos, you should already know that. So, I'm just gonna get right into it. Let's go, X-Men!
Go and save the city!
We start with issue 1 because that's where the beginning happens. Each of the 4 comics had an awesome front and back fold-out cover like this one, and on the reverse side we have the artwork for what would be featured on each of the cups a kid would receive. I absolutely think they made this decision to incentivize people into buying more than one issue. That way they could pull the covers off the staples and hang them as some rad posters. Hell, I'm 38 and I'm considering getting more for that very purpose.
They are X-Men!
Panel 1. What? Cyclops is blasting Wolverine with his optic blast. Wolverine tells the reader his name in dialogue that doesn't seem out of place at all, while Cyclops clunkily says his own. Jesus, Wolverine looks like he's about to flat out murder Cyclops here, and no one seems all that worried about it. Double page spread that doesn't look terrible on a floppy. Serious talk. I'm sick of superhero movies. If I never see another one again, that'd probably be okay. Why do I mention it? Because the one bright side is that at least everyone knows who superhero characters are, and it's no longer necessary to have dialogue like we have filling in a good portion of this first comic. Every character is Captain Exposition, either for themselves or for each other, using language you would never use in normal life. It's dialogue like, "It was a training exercise, Jubilee, designed so that we X-Men can hone our mutant powers in combat situations." And Jean Grey is saying stuff like, "Now I'll telekinetically shut down the danger room so we can all gather in the ready room." Does that make it at all charming? I don't know. Moving on. Responsible parties! Hey, Tom DeFalco. More exposition from everyone. Beast is joking around and Wolverine is clawing his name into the table. Since I came to this time from the distant future, from now on, whenever I meet someone new, I'm gonna start the conversation with that. Professor Xavier shows up in his, wheelchair? And tells them that they face a terrible threat. He's learned that one of their enemies has managed to strike at Cerebro and install an alien virus to compromise the device. Special thanks to Bishop for filling us in on what Cerebro is. Cerebro is a computer designed to locate and identify mutants so they can win them over to their side and help humanity. And all this exposition is blaring alarm klaxon for why the comic industry should have switched to a graphic novel model years and years ago. They pull up a hologram of some of their enemies and apparently Wolverine hates them in all forms, including holographic, and loses his destroying the table. Xavier says he's got things to attend to, like getting the hell out of Dodge, and leaves Storm and Cyclops in charge. They then proceed to split the team up into pairs to tackle the various problems Cerebro is facing. In order to realign its circuits, Rogue and Gambit will get the holographic doodads from the Danger Room. They need to re-energize the core with vibranium, which is only found on the Savage Land, and Wolverine and Jubilee are on the job. Storm and Beast will head to Mere Island in Scotland to appropriate technology, whatever that means, and Jean, Cyclops, and Bishop are left to reprogram Cerebro's core matrix. But little do our heroes realize that a mysterious figure watches them from on high. Ooh.
X-Men!
Interesting color choice. Rogue and Gambit head to the Danger Room, explaining what her powers are. Super strong and has the ability to absorb other people's powers, and he does his usual of hitting on her.
L'atonement est fini.
When they discover that someone has installed an override in the Danger Room hologram tech, which means they could reprogram it to look like a post-apocalyptic future where mutants are hunted down and exterminated. Specific, I know. And nope, neither of them notices the ground changing around them. Sentinels attack! Giant, ever-adapting robots with the sole purpose of capturing and exterminating mutants, and they're really chatty compared to what I remember from the cartoon. The pair get overwhelmed, they help each other out, and retreat to a hiding place to regroup. I don't know how big the Danger Room is, but I assume it's huge if they can fly far enough to escape 3 Sentinels. Rogue does the only sensible thing to do in this situation and starts philosophizing. Don't you ever wonder why we're all X-Men in the first place, Gambit? Why do we keep trying to better ourselves when it seems like the rest of the world is just getting worse? Every day of my life, Rogue. He tells her to shush 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 shush, and tricks her into taking his powers to charge objects with energy through bare physical contact. Suddenly, the Sentinels discover them, probably hiding out in a broom closet in the danger room. In hindsight, Rogue and Gambit's relationship is a walking, talking 90s ad for safe sex, but I'll leave that up to the college professors. Since the Sentinels adapt to their powers and tricks and learn over time, they don't see it coming when Rogue charges up chunks of debris and hurls them at the holographic robots. I have so many questions. The battle is won and Gambit is up on his feet, having tricked her and the robots into thinking he was hurt.
Don't mess with the Cajun.
The pair speculate as our mysterious bad guy continues to look on. Wait, is he wearing Cerebro? Anybody got any guesses yet as to who this mystery villain could be? Issue 2! Wolverine at Jubilee! Skyjacked by Sauron and Sabretooth hang on for the flight of their lives. Mid-air mutant mayhem brought to you by Pizza Hut. I kinda want that to be my wrestling name. Mid-air mutant mayhem. Look at that spread! This is a pretty awesome cover, actually. Hey look, guest appearance by Kazar, King of the Savage Land, and his pet Sabretooth, Zabu. Yikes, Kazar. Here's the interior art for this issue, also appearing on the cups for the kids' meal. Jubilee, as played by Roseanne Barr, is in big trouble as the console of the Blackbird sparks and smokes. Blech. I never liked Jubilee. Fireworks are her power. Fireworks. It's the equivalent of being able to grow your fingernails long, except I feel like that would be more useful. I'll say this for the miniseries. For the most part, the double-page spreads are awesome. Title card and comic slaves. Wolverine is on the outside of the plane fighting Sauron and Sabretooth and feels the need to make a dental hygiene joke. Jubilee tries the headphones, calling for help, but to no avail. Bogus! And in this moment, we get flashback exposition to the exposition in the last comic. Each character on each of their assignments, and there's a shot of Jubilee complaining about having to study aerodynamics. Wolverine tells her she'd be surprised how soon she might have to know that stuff to fly the jet. Ooh, foreshadowing. Like a typical know-it-all teenager, she says there's nothing that could surprise her since joining the X-Men. That's when she sees a Pteranodon doing what I can only assume is Mach 1 as it's keeping up with the stealth jet. The Savage Land! Squaw! They hop out of the plane and immediately run into Kazar and Zabu. Not my favorite rendition of the character. They rest by the fire and Jubilee makes a new friend in the form of Zabu as sinister silhouettes look on from afar. Later, this is the most ridiculous looking silhouette I've ever seen. Two figures steal on board as Savage Land natives load up the vibranium they've come for. An hour in the air later and Jubilee is flying the jet. Hey look, she has to fly the jet. When suddenly, prop, the Blackbird takes a nosedive and let's just take a minute to admire the layout and the coloring on this page. It's wonderful. Sauron and Sabretooth seize this moment to strike, though they're not the ones responsible for the mechanical failure, and Wolverine squares off with them.
Berserker Barrage!
During the struggle, Jubilee blinds Sabretooth, who stumbles around the cabin, knocking Wolverine and Sauron out the side door. That suddenly sprung open. Back at the mansion, an excellently drawn Bishop sees the Blackbird on radar and yells to Cyclops that something isn't right. Meanwhile, the side of the mountain opens up where they're supposed to land. Jubilee shows true confidence in the face of danger, while on the wing outside, Wolverine faces down his enemies still,
Let's go, bub.
yelling to Jubilee to hit the retro exhaust switch. The villainous Cretans are hurled from the wing of the plane into the sky as the Blackbird caroms into the hangar, ripping off a wing and igniting the fuel tanks. Bishop and Cyclops run in with fire extinguishers as Gambit grabs Jubilee to make sure she's okay. Is this pun really necessary? Jean grabs Wolverine and man! I forgot they used to draw Wolverine stocky. He looks awesome! And nothing at all like Hugh Jackman. The team once again speculates who's behind the attacks, and the shadowy figure continues to menace from behind the scenes. Issue 3! Fold-out cover, inside cup art. Beast and Aurora? I don't know that I've ever known that that was her actual name. Are on Muir Island in Scotland, at the most advanced genetic research center on the planet. A crazy-looking base where extra crazy-looking assistant has some computer monitors filled with some familiar-looking villains. Wait, Why is Cyclops in that group? Anyway, how a program created at the most advanced genetic research center on the planet is going to be any help with purging Cerebro system of an alien virus is anyone's guess, but I digress. Despite all the exposition and character introductions in the previous comic, all we get here is they're meeting Dr. Moira. That's it. Dr. M, as Beast calls her, gives the pair a tour of the facility, but, unbeknownst to all of them, something in the computer disarms the intruder alert system. Meanwhile, back at the Xavier School, this is a nice shot. I like the colors in that setting sun. Jubilee is tasked with cleaning up the mess she made while crashing the X-Jet into the hangar, and she's complaining about it, and why is the floor made like a basketball court? Professor X apparently had to cut some corners in order to be able to afford his own supersonic jet. Gambit basically tells her to shut up and recaps the adventure he went through in the previous issues, if you had forgotten, since these comics apparently came out weekly back in Muir Island. This seems grim to me, and slightly unethical. Unu Scion, a minion of Magneto, is being kept in captivity and they're doing research on her. Quotations. Suddenly, by the bright lady, the building is shaking. Hey, just like my 4th of July.
I am Magneto, master of magnet.
Magneto bursts through the wall in typical supervillain fashion, and Beast makes a terrible, unrelated joke about bringing back bell-bottoms. Speaking of which, my friend told me the other day that they're thinking about bringing them back again.
Come, ex-chicken.
Storm says Unu Scion has been tried and convicted for her crimes, and I gotta side with Magneto on this one. This whole situation seems pretty f***ed up. Storm thinks Magneto is responsible for messing with Cerebro, and he says that he would rather steal the dang thing to bring more mutants to his cause than destroy it. Beast recaps to the audience what Magneto's powers are, if you couldn't guess from the name. It makes some more terrible jokes. Magneto ties him up with some metal and slams him through the floor. Magneto and Storm fight. They don't really say anything of any real importance, just arguing over which side is right and wrong. Same thing you've heard 1,000 times before from these characters. Magneto hits Storm with a wall, and Beast, on a lower level, apparently found a torch to cut himself free. Upstairs, they're still fighting, and here it comes. I'll tell you, in the cartoons, I always hated Storm and Jean Grey. Jean always passed out from using her powers, and Storm, it was only a matter of time. Practically every episode where she would end up buried in rubble and freaking out over her claustrophobia. So of course that's what happens here too. Beast leaps back into action, wearing a hastily cobbled together impromptu electromagnetic dispersal unit, and blasts Magneto with it. Magneto stares in disbelief, and Storm gives him the speech that they are stronger than him because they work as a team. Typical cheesy, wonderful, amazing superhero stuff. Inspire the readers to be better. That's what all this is about. Unu Scion tells Magneto that he must not be caught there, and that he should leave her behind. What? And leave the party before the pizza has been delivered? Promotional tie-in. Magneto covers himself in a magnetic bubble and escapes into the skies, cursing their names. I'm assuming. In the Blackbird, the heroes converse with each other and set the reader up for the big finale in the next issue, while the mysterious figure, who looks a whole f***ing lot like Charles Xavier, watches on. Issue 4! This is it! The big finale you've been waiting for the last at least 7 minutes. Some Lawnmower Man-inspired constructs attack Cyclops and Bishop on this final cover, and there's more awesome cup artwork. Page 1, X-Men Roll Call. What the hell is up with Jubilee's eyes? This is so retro! I feel like I should have that on a t-shirt or something. The irony is that she's staring at 3 characters hanging in the craziest harness, attached to supercomputers used to locate and identify potential mutant candidates, and she's calling it retro. If it were retro, they'd be plugged into an Atari 2600, or to keep with the Pizza Hut promotional tie-in, they'd be tied into a Centipede tabletop arcade unit. I hate Jubilee. Alright then, 1 to go. Here's the early 90s explanation of what we're about to see as we enter cyberspace, the electronic subdimension that exists within the electromagnetic field of all computers. That sounds f***ing awesome, and I want to live in a world where that's a real thing. They basically just used the premise of Tron for this comic. Oh lord. More recap of all previous issues. Switch to trade format already, comic industry. Man, Glenn is really struggling to keep up with these editorial duties. He's no Ralph, that's for sure. Jubilee wants to know who could sneak in and mess with Cerebro. Let's find out, says Jean. In cyberspace. No joke, folks. Every time I go onto Twitter, it looks exactly like this. See? I should mention that, like the Matrix, if they're killed in cyberspace, they're killed in the real world too. Also, their powers behave exactly the same. Suddenly, the world falls out from under our heroes and our villain appears! It's Arcade! Appropriately. One of their oldest, deadliest enemies, or so Cyclops says. Wait, he uses giant pinball machines on them in the real world? That's amazing. I should look that up. Ah, crap. Jean's making that face again, like she's gonna lose it. It's like having a friend that gets sick every time in the car and can't stop puking. What, just me? Wolverine wants to jump into action and help, but he can't when the constructs appear as each of the other X-Men. Boy, I'll tell ya, they're just wireframes, but these graphics are pretty impressive for 1993. Arcade really tightened them up on this level. NPC Rogue gives Cyclops a wicked uppercut, and I'm sorry, what? Tap into an outside line? It's official, the X-Men are on dial-up. Anyway, if that happens, then Arcade would be able to affect all the computers in the world. Except for the ones that aren't connected to an outside line, you know, like most, because it's 1993. Also, most people don't even have a computer in their home yet. We didn't get one until about 1995. Thankfully, they digitized Bishop's guns, and after a brief explanation of his backstory, he's ready to rock. Oh no. Arcade starts taunting again, and Jesus, did Bishop put on weight between panels? Cyclops smiles knowingly and explains that they stopped fighting because Bishop was absorbing all the energy hurled at him, so yeah, I guess he got fat. And now he unleashes that raw energy to purge Cerebro of apparently not an alien computer virus. Unless they meant alien as in foreign? And, I was kinda hoping that would be more impressive looking. Anyway, they win. Creepy Jean Smile is happy, and the hollowed out Arcade head is talking to them telepathically. Shock of shocks! Yeah, it was Professor X all along. It was a test, and he was grading them the whole time. Despite being the good guys and trying to teach ethics and morals to this group of quote-unquote youngsters, this whole thing seems to have been completely unethical. But they worked together to accomplish their goal as a team. They overcame unforeseen circumstances. They wrecked his landing bay, but they all saved the day in the end. Jubilee asks if they passed their test, and of course they did. But I like this part, this final wrap-up. So long as there is a need to make this world a better place, there will always be a few good mutants willing to assume the responsibilities that come with being an X-Man. I can't remember the last time I read a comic that had a positive message about being a decent human being in it. This is fantastic. It might come across as cheesy to state something so obvious, but people constantly need to be reminded to do the right thing. Deep down they want to, but they struggle to overcome their emotional responses. We need positive role models to strive towards. Luke Skywalker has been my hero since childhood, and I actually woke up in the middle of the night a few weeks ago, furious again at how much they've shit on him since the end of 2012. I'm so sick of these bitter pieces of shit people that don't like the properties they work on and hate the people that love this stuff and actively strive to destroy these things because they utterly lack empathy. It's disgusting. But that's it for Pizza Hut's X-Men tie-in. Cue the aforementioned pizza party. Merry misadventures? If that's not enough excitement for you, don't miss the X-Men animated series every X Saturday, X morning, only on Fox TV. I'll tell you, I miss superheroes wearing bright color spandex, and before this genre of movie dies, I demand a Wolverine movie with him in bright blue and yellow. The colors were wonderful, the art for the most part was fantastic. It's a little shaky in the last one, but still good. What's with that, by the way? Why does that happen with a lot of limited series? The art will start off really strong, and then towards the end they have another artist come in to finish. And that person isn't necessarily a bad artist, but you're already accustomed to the earlier style, so the final issue just looks like everyone stopped trying. Empire's End did that. They brought in another artist to sort of emulate Cam Kennedy, and the results were not great. Speaking of art, is there anything I learned or saw while reading that I can apply to my own comic? Because that's what we do this for. Sort of. Just kind of boring stuff. When I ask this question, a lot of times it comes down to textures, like how someone handles drawing rocks on the ground, or the dings and dents they put in a metal surface. Like any good writer needs to constantly be reading, any good comic artist needs to constantly be looking at comics and seeing if there are any techniques they can internalize and change to fit their own style. So yeah, there's some stuff here and there. Like I said, ground textures and surface details. Boring stuff, but important stuff. So that's gonna do it for me this week, guys. I hope you enjoyed the review. Subscribe, like, and share if you feel so inclined. I'll see you with another review. Thanks, bye.
No one is safe.
Rookie.